Hi guys, Jenny with On Fire Fit, and welcome to week 2 of the battle to defeat your giants. We are starting this week off, and it is going to be focusing on probably the most familiar story that you know about giants, and that would be David and Goliath. And there is a lot that we can learn from that. So we will be reading from 1 Samuel in order to do that. But today, let me ask you if you've heard this quote: fear is false evidence appearing real. Why I begin with that is because when you look at the beginning of the story of David and Goliath, Goliath is described right off the bat in a lot of descriptive terms that look pretty threatening and intimidating. And then you read about David, and he is the youngest, just a boy, and he's a shepherd. So when we look at our giant in our life, there are probably a lot of things about it that intimidate us, threaten us, make us feel weak, make us feel small, make us feel like a little kid that just can't seem to overcome. But in the face of a giant, when you have God on your side, you are in the majority. You plus God makes you bigger than that giant. And that's what we have to keep in mind. So as you go through, remember that I have included the handout so that you can fill in the blanks as we go along and grow through the power of the Word of God, which I truly believe is what makes a difference. And when we apply it to our lives and we learn and grow from it, then we actually see change. So as you go through and you look at the story of David and Goliath, I want you to be thinking about your giant. What characteristics do you see in that giant? And what about you? What are the characteristics about you that you see when you face this giant? You may feel confident, and that would be fine. So put that down. Or you might feel fearful, or you might feel like, I've done this so many times before and I've not been able to overcome it. Whatever comes to your mind, write it down, because this is the time that we are kind of delving into what it is that has prevented us from being able to put this behind us before. So most of the time, the giant is going to trigger some kind of fear in you, and that is when we notice our weaknesses. And so we need to start to focus on our strength, which is going to be God, of course. And we know that, and a lot of times we know it in our head, but we don't actually put into action the things that we know. When I think about my current giant, believe it or not, it has been writing. And I write an On Fire Faith devotional email every day, and I post that. But for some reason, this driving force in me has said to write workbooks or books. I don't have a very definite knowing of what exactly it will be used for. But the process of writing this devotional is exactly what I have been feeling I needed to do. And yet it has been this kind of looming fear. I feel a little bit like there's a flood of thoughts that I have that I can't get to put down onto paper. So it feels bigger than me. It feels disorganized in the thoughts that come flooding in. And yet I do trust that God is going to take all of that and put it into some kind of coherent understanding and be used for a purpose. But the giant loves to feel big and looming to try to prohibit you from moving forward. So I have gotten to the point where I already know in my mind what those characteristics are of the giant, and I already know the characteristics of God. So I have resolved that I'm going to sit down and I'm going to pray, and I'm going to ask God for direction, and then I am going to write. And I am not going to decide from one day to the next whether or not I feel inspired. I am going to sit down and let him work through me. And I have to anticipate that there's going to be times that I don't feel like it, that I feel disorganized and jumbled, but I'm going to do it anyway. And there may be days that I have to toss out what I wrote because maybe it didn't go as flowing as I wanted. So far, that has not happened, but there's going to be tweaking that has to be done. I cannot let the idea of having to have perfection and knowing the whole plan stand in my way of starting. You might have a totally different giant going on in your life. You might feel like it's food or alcohol or trying to lose weight or something else. Maybe you're trying to get started in a business or a totally different direction for your life, and it just feels so big to you. I think we need to boil it down into the characteristics that it has, what we are feeling, and then what we know that God has placed on our heart, and knowing that that's going to override all of those things that the giant is trying to threaten us with. So take your time, go through this exercise, see if you come out with any different understanding of what is going on with your giant. And then I'll see you back here tomorrow, and live on fire.